was ringing the alarm for this a long time ago, and I'm sure you're aware of what's happening to him now.
I am aware that something new is happening to him in the last couple of days, but I have not caught up to it.
The College of Psychologists, a bunch of people put in power by the government basically, is threatening to take my dad's psychology license because he's been criticizing the government.
Joe Rogan and Brett Weinstein sit down and discuss Jordan Peterson. They also discuss escape velocity in the terms of how much a public figure is reliant on traditional media outlets to relay their message. Dr. Brett Weinstein is an evolutionary biologist, podcaster, and author. He is the author along with his wife.
Says the College of Psychologists of Ontario, the government-mandated Professional College of Psychologists, has disciplined me and is threatening my clinical psychology license for retweeting the Conservative Party leader.
Jordan blasted Canada's commissars and penned a scathing letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau Tuesday after a leading association of his fellow psychologists threatened to go after his license to practice clinical psychology over social media criticisms of the nation's far-left government. The College of Psychologists of Ontario ordered the best-selling author and Daily Wire Plus host to undergo social media communications retraining, the re-education plan, or face a hearing on the potential suspension of his medical license. Writing to Justin Trudeau, Peterson vowed not to participate.
Pierre Poilievre, how do you say his name?
Not sure.
Criticizing Justin Trudeau, the chief of staff Gerald Butts, someone named Jacinda Ardern, and an Ottawa city councillor. He is required to participate in mandatory social media communication retraining.
Canada's most famous public intellectual, Jordan Peterson, brought that meme to real life this week when he announced he'd rather never work again than be forced onto the couch. I don't blame him. The College of Psychologists of Ontario has told Peterson that if he doesn't go to therapy, a board-mandated coaching program with a board-issued therapist, it may revoke his license to practice psychology.
It says to modify my objectionable behavior, which I absolutely refuse to do. So they'll go to the next step, which would be an in-person disciplinary hearing, with my license on the line. I'm going to make all this public this week. If you're interested, take a look. Canada has given over to the commissars, something I thought I'd never see in my lifetime. Happy New Year. But the term retraining, I'll read it again because it sounds so bonkers that someone would think that this is a good idea. This term is so crazy that he is going to have to participate in mandatory social media communication retraining. Social media communication retraining. Like, you have to do it the way I do it. You have to do it the way other people that we have decided the way you communicate is not proper. We don't agree. You're retweeting people who are critical or criticizing the government, and we don't agree with that. So we're going to retrain you how to communicate on social.
Well, I can't say I'm terribly surprised. Ultimately, anybody who remains inside an institution is going to be up against disciplinary hearings if they insist on seeing reality and discussing it.
What exactly did Jordan do that was so terrible that now he is being investigated by this ridiculous organization, the College of Psychologists of Ontario? What exactly did he do? Well, he retweeted Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre. I'm going to screw up his name, but so be it. Blasted Trudeau's former senior aide, Gerald Butts, and he blasted New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, tweeting opposition to a plan by Ottawa police to take custody of the children of trucker convoy protesters. He also told Joe Rogan's podcast audience that accepting radical gender theory is a sign of civilization collapsing, and also said that climate change models are unreliable. So apparently, this is enough for the college executive director to review the tweets and a transcript from Peterson's appearance on Joe Rogan and determine that this warranted an investigation. The probe has now been expanded to include subsequent social media posts by Peterson, including a May Twitter post in which he said that Sports Illustrated putting plus-size swimsuit model Yumi Nu on the cover was not an example of beauty.
What warranted this ultimatum? A few tweets and a podcast. According to Peterson, about a dozen people from around the world complained to the college about comments he had made on Twitter and on Joe Rogan's podcast. claiming that those statements had caused harm. Whether or not Peterson is ultimately penalized for his refusal to comply, the damage has already been done. The public has seen behind the curtain. Within the governing body of a profession that searches out our innermost thoughts, the punishment of wrongthink apparently now takes precedence over the free exchange of ideas.
This isn't even a process that goes to court. It's just this regulatory board of like 12 tyrannical individuals. It's crazy that what you say online can be used to get rid of your license if people don't like you politically. Seriously bullying my dad in a way that really caused everyone in my family a lot of stress. I think it's part of what contributed to him being quite ill in 2019, 2020.
There's nothing that they can say that is going to cause him to do that.
Well, fortunately, he doesn't have to. This is the most important part about it, is that Jordan has achieved escape velocity. And he doesn't need them anymore. And so this is an empty threat. So this removing his license, you're not going to take away his education, his degrees. If you say you're removing his license, well, I don't think he's seeing clients anymore. He's not really acting as a clinical psychologist anymore, is he?
I don't think so.
I don't believe so.
And I agree with you. I think what we have to discuss is this. There's a question about where each of us are with respect to what you're calling escape velocity.
Yeah.
And in fact, you and I sitting here is an interesting test case because I've come close to escape velocity, but not quite.
He's getting investigated because of tweets he's tweeted, personal tweets, opinions, things he said on Joe Rogan. It's such a scam, too. They're requiring him to do media retraining that he pays $225 an hour for an unspecified amount of time. And then at the end of that training, they decide whether or not he's learned anything and whether he can continue being a psychologist.
And I'm hoping that they'll take the big leap because they can talk directly to their constituents. They can talk directly to the people who they're responsible to with no intermediation of bureaucracy, if they dare. Because like I said, I think you can make mistakes, but if you're bargaining in good faith, the audience will forgive you for your mistakes. So, but you're punished brutally if you're false. So, and I don't know about you, but I'm really attentive to the comments. I watch how people are responding. And, if 10 people point out something, I'm still working on this proclivity to interrupt, but if 10 people point out something, I try to address it. My team tries to address it because, well, why not? You're probably doing something wrong at some point. If enough people tell you, it's tricky.
Yeah, it's, we are living in the strangest of times.
The strangest of times.
Because when you're ignoring, like if you talk about the Great Barrington Declaration, you're ignoring virologists and epidemiologists and their expert opinion on things.
Top flight.
Yeah, and then actively talking through emails, openly talking about publicly discrediting these people.
Well, there are a number of topics we need to talk about here, but one of them is this clear pattern where those of us who have achieved some kind of immunity to their control speak about these things. We pay some terrible price, we get slandered on our Wikipedia pages and elsewhere, but we persist. And eventually, it forces an acknowledgement of what we were saying that's years late, that has tremendous consequences for what we're actually doing. But I'm convinced that what they're up to is they're fixing the historical record, right? When we stand up to their nonsense and we make it clear what's actually taking place, and they are begrudgingly acknowledging this in the end, what it will look like in their own writing of the record, and they will, of course, write the record, is that, government's a bit slow and they were a little late to acknowledge this, but of course that was because they were being very scientifically careful, which is nonsense. They never would have acknowledged it if they hadn't been forced to it.